So for step 1, attaching the spur gear, well, you can see right away we're going to be working with our main chassis. Then we have this C5 piece that goes into a bearing. Then there is this spur gear stopper, and then there's a pin, and then it goes into the spur gear. But there's a couple of things you have to be aware of. It is saying what you've got to be careful that pin does not come out when you're actually placing it into the chassis. And this bit, the GB2, it is directional. So you see here, this has a hole in it, whereas the other side is just flat. You have to make sure that the side with the hole, that hole right there, is facing towards the inside of the chassis. So there is the shaft, the bearing, our spur gear stopper, our 61 tooth spur, and then of course our chassis. Now this piece here, the rear propeller joint, well, remember, this is one of the upgrades that we can do for the racing. So I'm going to be installing it with this aluminum propeller joint. So we're going to be replacing that with the aluminum piece. So other than that, it looks like it should be pretty straightforward. So I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So I think what we'll do first is let's grab our propeller joint. So there is the aluminum one versus the stock one. And it shows you putting some grease there. I won't be doing that because this is a ball bearing, so I don't tend to do that. But it does show greasing up the spur gear stopper. That I am going to grease up. And remember, we're going to make sure that that hole is facing, I guess, towards the bearing now. So I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on there. And that is going to sit on there just like that. Then we have the pin. So the pin sits inside of the propeller joint just like that. And this is the part where you got to make sure that it doesn't slip out. Now, once you have the pin in place, this is where it gets slightly tricky. So if we grab our main chassis here, you can see that even in the diagram, they're showing that this has to go in on an angle to be able to fit into the correct spot. So you can't just attach all of this and then put it down. It won't fit. So you've got to get the spur gear down into the chassis while you're putting that through, and make sure that the pin goes all the way through, which it has, and then place it down into the chassis. So you can see there that when it's sitting properly, the pin will be inside the spur gear, the black piece, so the spur gear stopper will keep the pin in, and then the bearing is going to sit in this spot here so that it rotates freely. So now it's rotating fine. So you just have to be careful as you're positioning that in, that the pin itself stays inside that spur gear. Otherwise this won't work in, as you go farther in the instructions. So there we go. There is our spur gear in place. So step 1 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 2 and attach the propeller shaft. So for step 2, attaching the propeller shaft, well, you can see that we need to grab our propeller shaft. It's going to go into the propeller joint at the front, then it goes in, and then you slide that into the rear, and that should hopefully keep everything together. And you can see obviously that we're going to change our front propeller joint to the aluminum one, and the same thing with our center drive shaft. We're replacing the plastic one with the aluminum one. But the interesting thing is, and we'll see how this goes, I always find this weird because what I've realized is you've got these two B8 pieces, which will be for the battery holder, I'm sure. They're going to be screwed in from the bottom using these tapping screws, the flatheads. But because we don't have the center drive shaft or the spur gear locked in, to my mind, trying to put those on, this stuff gets loose and could fall out. But we'll see. In which case, they maybe should have had you put those on before doing step 1 and step 2, but we'll see. So there are the tapping screws. Those are the the B8 pieces. We've got our front joint and of course our aluminum shaft. So I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So if we do what they suggest, let's get this in place. And you can see that they're wanting you to grease up the dog bone ends, so we'll do that for both this side and the other side. Just like that. I don't have to go crazy, but I do put on enough, let's put it that way. And you can see that we're going to need to slide that into there. Now they are showing you greasing up the inside of there, but I think there's enough. I'll just put a little bit there, but that's going to slide into there just like that. So this is going to slide into the inside there. And once it's on that side, you can see on this side, it's weird because we're going to end up having to lift this up again to be able to slide that shaft into there and then drop it back down again. So hopefully everything is still okay in the position, but everything seems to be correct. So there is our center drive shaft in place. And then what we've got left are these B8 pieces. So again, I mean, I guess it's locked in enough, sort of. Well, you're gonna have to hold it because if I turn this over completely, the spur gear is gonna fall out. So let's just make sure that we can get this on properly. So we know we've got this one here, a B8 piece right like that. That's gonna fit down there in that hole, just like that. It looks like it doesn't move because there's a groove on it. See how it's sort of flat on one side, so is the shaft. So when that goes in, it can't really go anywhere. But I am going to put my finger on the shaft so that things will still stay in position while I screw this on. So I'm just going to grab the extension there. I'm going to use my finger to hold it in while we screw this all the way. And it is a tapping screw. And remember, the B parts tree is soft plastic. So you're going to want to make sure that as much as you're going to tighten this up, you don't want to reef on it because it's going to strip. And so again, same thing on the back. If you look at it the way that this is in the diagram, it's going to be back here. Well, same idea. So I'm going to hold this, grab the tapping screw, get it going. Yep, there we go. And I'll tighten it up. And again, I'm not going to go crazy, but I am going to make sure that it is tight. So there we go. It's not too bad, but if you're not familiar with the fact that this is all loose, if we had been putting this on and you just sort of threw it around and, you know, tilted it up to screw it in, all of this could end up falling out of the chassis. But it didn't, and there we go. So now step 2 is complete. We've got the center drive shaft in. So now we're going to move on to step 3 and attach the motor parts.